At Christmas brunch, I knocked on the door with my kids. My mom peeked through the window, then opened it just enough to say, "Today's not a good day for your kind of energy." My kids looked at me, confused. I just took their hands and said, "Let's go get pancakes." 10 minutes later, my brother called, panicking, "Why did you cancel your sister's lease?" Last Christmas was the last time I brought my kids to my parents' house. I didn't know it at the time, but something about that morning felt off before we even left home. The sky was heavy with snow clouds and the roads were quiet. My son had memorized a short Christmas poem he wanted to recite to Grandma. My daughter had drawn a picture of our family in front of a fireplace. She glued little cotton balls on for snow. They were excited, cheerful, asking if Grandpa was going to wear his funny reindeer tie again. We parked in front of the house just before 10 o'clock. The porch light was on even though it was daytime. I walked up with the kids and knocked like we always did. No answer for a moment. Then I saw the curtain shift slightly upstairs. A pause. Another minute passed before the door creaked open just enough to reveal her face. She didn't smile. She didn't say, "Merry Christmas." Just leaned slightly forward and said flat and calm, "Today is not the best day for such energetic guests." That was it. My daughter glanced at me. My son frowned, clearly confused. I said nothing, just reached out, took their hands and walked us back to the car. We drove to a diner off Route 9. Cheap, warm, cheerful. The waitress gave the kids extra whipped cream without asking. I told them we were going to have our own Christmas brunch. They didn't say much, just ate quietly, glancing at the window now and then. My phone buzzed halfway through the meal. It was my brother. He sounded frantic. "What the hell, man? Why did you cancel Jenny's lease?" I didn't answer right away. I thought I'd misheard. He said the leasing office called that morning and told her the cosigner had withdrawn. She wasn't getting the apartment now. "You were the cosigner." He said they said you backed out. I told him I hadn't signed any lease, hadn't canceled anything. He kept pushing. Said she already gave notice at her current place, had half her stuff in boxes, and now she might have nowhere to live in January. I said I didn't know what he was talking about. He called me a liar, said I was being selfish. Then he hung up. That night, after I got the kids to bed, I sat down at my laptop. I wasn't just curious, I was angry. I checked my email history, searched for anything from the leasing office. Buried deep in my inbox was a forwarded message. It came from my mom's address. I never opened it because the subject looked like junk. Forward. Verification required. Urgent. Inside was a PDF. It had my name, my information, my supposed signature. A cosigner cancellation. Except I had never seen it before. The digital signature had an IP address embedded in the metadata. I ran a quick search. The IP was registered to their zip code, specifically a residential address on their street. It didn't take long to figure out. My mother had forged the cancellation. She had pretended to be me and pulled out of the lease just in time to ruin my sister's move, then made sure I'd be the one they blamed. That explained the door. That explained her face. She didn't want us there because the trap had already been sprung. And suddenly it all clicked. The small digs over the years, the subtle shifting of blame, the way every argument always seemed to come back to something I supposedly did wrong. They'd never said it, but I wasn't one of them anymore. They just finally stopped pretending. The silence after Christmas didn't feel accidental. Felt staged. No follow-up texts from my mom asking if the kids liked their gifts. No calls from Jenny. Just that one string of messages from my brother loaded with blame. The first one said, "I seriously don't get what you're trying to prove." And then another, "You knew she needed that place. You just didn't care." A few hours later, "Honestly, this is just like you pretending to be better than us." I didn't respond. I'd already gone through the email chain from the leasing office 3 times, zoomed in on the PDF signature, checked the IP address again. It wasn't a guess anymore. She signed it from her house as me. That meant she lied about needing help with utilities. She tricked me into giving her enough information to fill out a lease application and a cancellation form in my name. She made sure the damage would land squarely on me. What got me wasn't just the betrayal. It was the coordination. They had to have talked about it. My mother and Jenny, maybe even my brother. Otherwise, how would he know to blow up my phone minutes after the leasing office called her? It was timed too perfectly. I didn't call her out. I didn't ask for an explanation. I just got to work. A few years ago, before my dad died, he set up inheritance accounts for each of us. I was the executive, not by choice, but because I was the only one he trusted not to gamble it away or buy a boat. Each account was locked until certain life events. First child, marriage, home purchase. If they hit the milestone and asked for their share, I was supposed to release it. Jenny's milestone was now. The lease she'd been trying to secure was tied to that deposit. She had emailed me about it back in October, saying she was moving out and would need the funds around January. I hadn't taken action at the time, too busy. But now I logged into the fund portal and flagged her account. I marked it, review required, and removed all disbursement permissions. No email, no warning, just removed it. Then I turned to my brother. He was in the middle of launching some boutique renovation startup. Had been bragging about it since Thanksgiving. He'd been hounding me for weeks to send over a verification letter stating his inheritance account balance. He wanted to use it as collateral for a loan. I had even half-written the letter already. I opened the draft, deleted it, and logged into his account. Same treatment. I reset the password, removed access, and left the balance untouched. Let the bank tell him no. I wasn't being petty. I was being precise. For years, I played the reliable one, the fixer, the mediator. When Jenny missed payments, I'd covered. When my brother crashed his car, I co-signed the lease for his next one. Every time my mom stirred up drama, I was the one who smoothed things over. But now it was different. Now they made it clear I wasn't family to them. I was just a tool. So I stopped playing my part. A few days into January, Mom sent a group message. Hope everyone's easing into the new year. Miss seeing you all. I didn't reply. I watched the bubble on the screen. My brother gave it a thumbs up. Jenny sent a red heart. Then Mom called. I let it ring. The voicemail was short. Just wondering how you all are. Haven't heard from you since Christmas. Hope we didn't do something to upset you. Didn't do something. I sat there staring at the phone. That line, hope we didn't do something. That was classic her. Passive, fake, worried. Acting like she wasn't holding a lit match behind her back. What she didn't know was that I'd already set the boundaries in motion. Not with a big confrontation. Not with a dramatic exit. Just quiet locks on all the doors she used to walk through without knocking. And once those locks clicked, I had no intention of opening them again. A week passed then, too. Nothing from Jenny. Nothing from my brother. Mom sent another text, this time just to me. I feel like something's wrong. Can we talk? I didn't respond. I left it sitting there unread but not unseen. Then came the email. Subject line. Inheritance accounts. Quick question from Jenny. She wrote like nothing had happened. Said she needed the deposit for a new apartment, different building, slightly cheaper than the last. She mentioned a deadline coming up and asked if I could process the release ASAP. She even included a photo of the lease agreement like that would nudge me into action. I didn't reply. I archived it and flagged the message internally. 2 days later, she tried again. This time, she sounded irritated. Just checking on the transfer. The building manager needs confirmation or I'm going to lose this place. 2. I don't understand why you're ghosting me. That one I didn't even open. I deleted it straight out of the notification preview. That weekend, my brother showed up at my door. I didn't recognize the knock at first. Too quick, too deliberate. I looked through the peephole. He was standing there in jeans and a coat too thin for January, holding a manila envelope. When I opened the door, he didn't even say hi. Just held out the envelope and said, "This is the letter for the loan application. They need it this week." I told him he could leave it in the mailbox. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. I drove across town, he said. You could at least talk to me. I didn't answer. He stood there a little longer, then finally dropped the envelope into the box and walked off without another word. I didn't touch the envelope. It sat there for a week until the rain turned it to pulp. I left it. The shift started to hit them slowly. Jenny's new lease fell through. She posted something passive-aggressive on Facebook about people pretending to help but disappearing when it matters. My brother didn't get the loan. I knew this because he applied to the same regional bank where I used to work, and a friend still in lending mentioned it to me. Said the deal fell apart because he couldn't verify the collateral. Then Mom tried again. She sent a box to my house, handwritten note on top, some cookies under plastic wrap, and a framed photo of me as a kid holding my first bike. The note said, "Hope this reminds you where you come from." I threw the photo in the closet and dumped the cookies in the trash. The thing is, they thought I was punishing them. They thought I was angry, emotional, wounded, but they were wrong. I wasn't reacting. I was done reacting. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a slow, methodical cut, one thread at a time. They had taken me for granted for years, counted on my silence, my predictability, my unwillingness to confront. They treated me like a spare part. I had done the math a long time ago. I just hadn't pulled the trigger. Until they gave me the perfect excuse. They wanted to play games. They forgot I could play too. But I wasn't playing to win anymore. I was playing to end it. By mid-February, the silence I gave them started echoing louder than anything they'd ever said. Jenny's third email finally dropped the polite tone. She accused me of being cruel, manipulative, said she couldn't believe I was doing this to my own sister, claimed I had some kind of superiority complex and that Dad would be ashamed of me. That part made me laugh. Dad would have seen this for exactly what it was. He knew them better than they think. I didn't answer her. I didn't need to. That same week, my brother's ex called me. I hadn't spoken to her in over a year. She said he was in a bad place, that the loan fell through, that he was behind on rent for the warehouse he'd leased for the renovation business. She asked if there was any way I could talk to him, not help, just talk. I told her I wasn't interested. She said she understood. And that was that. Things really started to unravel after that. Jenny moved back in with Mom. She posted about it vaguely online. Something like, "Life throws curveballs, but family catches you." Except I knew better. That house wasn't a haven. It was the nest where they all learned to twist stories into weapons. I could tell Mom was starting to panic beneath her usual calm mask. She started forwarding emails from her church group, inspirational quotes about forgiveness and family, Bible verses she never actually lived by. I ignored everyone. Then she tried something bolder. She left a voicemail saying she was thinking about rewriting her will. Said she wanted to make sure everything was handled fairly and asked if I wanted to come over for lunch to talk about it. There it was, the trap. The invitation to come back to the fold, to play the role again. The beautiful son, the problem solver, the one who takes the high road. Except I wasn't interested in the road. I was building my own. I didn't call back. I didn't even let it bother me. What she didn't know was that Dad had already handled the real will years ago. Separately, quietly. The house wasn't even hers fully. It was in a trust split 3 ways. 1/3 was mine, legally irrevocable. She couldn't cut me out, but I had no intention of ever claiming it. I was waiting for the moment when they'd realized I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't angry. I was just finished. The kids started asking questions again, more carefully this time. My daughter asked if we could go see Grandma just for a minute. My son said maybe things were different now, that they missed us. I told them the truth. We don't visit people who lie. We don't visit people who hurt others to protect their own mistakes. And most importantly, we don't visit people just because they are family. It was hard. They didn't like it, but they listened. By March, Mom sent a final message, a long one. She said she didn't know what she did wrong, that she missed her grandchildren, that she hoped I would find peace. No apology. Not one word admitting what she'd done. Just a vague call for peace. As if this was some misunderstanding I was dragging out. She still didn't get it. There would be no return, no reunion, no heartwarming moment around a dinner table. This wasn't a grudge. It was a divorce. And I was done being married to people who only showed love when they were in control. Spring came early that year. The snow vanished overnight and everything started blooming too fast. It should have felt like a fresh start, but all I felt was the weight finally lifting. I wasn't checking my phone anymore. I wasn't waiting for the next excuse or guilt trip. I was out, but they weren't done. In April, I got a call from the elementary school. The secretary said my mom had tried to pick up my daughter from class. Said she claimed there was a family emergency and that she was taking her home. She didn't even have pickup authorization. They stopped her before she could sign anything. Called me immediately and told her to leave. I had to take an early lunch and drive down there just to make sure everything was okay. My daughter was fine but confused. Said grandma told her I was making a mistake and that she needed to come stay with them just for a few days. I had to sit down with the principal. I signed a new form removing all extended family from the emergency contacts list. Then I blocked my mother's number from both of my kids' phones. When they asked why, I told them because I love them. Because I'm protecting them. That was the moment I crossed the line in my own head. Up until then, I was just stepping away, quietly, removing myself. But now this wasn't distance anymore. This was war. I didn't call my mom. I didn't yell or threaten or ask for an explanation. I just called my lawyer. I told him I wanted to update my will. Everything would go to my kids. A separate clause forbade guardianship to any biological family members on either side. I gave him the full story. He didn't even look surprised. Said he'd seen worse. The final blow came the next week. I got an alert from the bank, a flagged transaction attempt. My brother had tried to use his inheritance account as collateral again, except this time he'd forged a letter, a fake verification document with my digital signature copy from an old email attachment. I called the bank directly, had them file a fraud report. Within 2 days, the account was frozen. Not just his, but Jenny's too. The trust clause in the accounts allowed me to freeze them permanently in case of misuse. They weren't just blocked now. They were done. No more milestones. No more second chances. Then I sent a certified letter to my mother's house. It wasn't angry, just factual. I included copies of the fraud report, the school incident, and the trust termination documents. I ended it with one sentence. You will not be part of our lives again. 2 days later, she tried to show up at my house. This time I called the police. She never made it to the front door. The officer gave her a formal trespass warning. She cried, apparently told him she didn't understand, that she was just trying to fix things, but she wasn't trying to fix anything. She was trying to reclaim control. She still doesn't know that the house she's living in, the one she always called hers, will legally belong to me in 4 years when the trust converts. And when it does, I already know what I'm going to do. Sell it. Every room, every photo, every fake memory stored in the walls. Gone. Because I finally understood something I should have known a long time ago. You don't owe people loyalty just because they share your blood. And family isn't who raises you. It's who protects you when things fall apart. They had their chance and they blew it. Summer came in heavy and fast. The kids were out of school and we spent more time at the lake than we ever had. I rented a little cabin for weekends. Just the 3 of us. No schedules, no calls, just stillness. They stopped reaching out, not because they understood, but because they realized I wasn't bluffing. There was nothing left to manipulate. The money was locked. The house was eventually slipping from under them. I wasn't answering calls. I wasn't showing up to play the role of the family fixer anymore. And then came the final crack. Jenny called from a new number, and for some reason I picked up. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I wanted to hear it for myself. She started soft, saying she wanted to talk, that she didn't understand how everything got this bad, that mom was not doing well, and maybe I should consider coming by. I didn't say anything. Then she switched tones. She said I was being selfish, that I was destroying the family over a misunderstanding, that punishing everyone over a single document was vindictive. A single document, as if it started there. I hung up mid-sentence. Later that week, my daughter came into the kitchen with her tablet. She'd been watching old family videos, ones I had transferred from DVDs years ago. Her eyes were red. She asked if we could just visit for a little while, even if it was outside, just to say hi. I told her no, not now, not ever. She didn't argue, but I saw something in her expression. Not anger, just a quiet recognition that I meant it, that this wasn't about some grudge or tantrum. This was permanent. One night, I pulled the old photo albums out of the closet. The ones Mom had put together when we were kids. Birthdays, school plays, summer camping trips where Dad cooked everything and Mom complained about bugs. I sat at the table and looked through each one. Then I threw them in the fire pit. I didn't feel anything watching them burn. Not sadness, not even relief, just clarity. I had a voicemail saved on my phone from years ago from Dad right before he passed. I kept it without thinking. That night, I listened to it again. He said, "Take care of your kids. That's the only legacy that matters." And he was right. So I made a final decision. I changed our last names. Not for the kids, just for me. Quietly, legally, I went back to my grandfather's original surname, the one before it got changed at Ellis Island. Before it got buried under the weight of guilt and control. No ceremony. No announcement, just a clean break. They don't know where we live now. I moved that fall. Smaller town, closer to my job, closer to the lake. We have new neighbors, new routines, and for the first time, I don't feel like I'm living someone else's life. The kids adjusted fast. They still ask questions sometimes. I answer them honestly. When they ask why we don't see Grandma or Uncle or Aunt Jenny, I tell them because we don't visit people who try to hurt us. They never ask twice. They know. Summer turned to fall and everything had settled into a comfortable rhythm. The cabin weekends became months and school began with no mention of Grandma or the rest. I thought that was it, that we'd finally close the chapter. But then last week, life threw another curveball. My daughter came home, eyes wide, holding a letter. It was addressed not to me, but to her in shaky cursive, postmarked from the town where my mother still lived. My daughter had received it. A letter for her. I opened it with dread. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper, the sort you send with kids to school, folded small enough to slip through a locker slot. The handwriting was unmistakable. My mom's. It read, "I was wrong. I'm sorry. You're right. We broke trust and I broke your little girls. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know I realize now. Grandma." No threats, no manipulation, no reminders of past hurt, just a confession. For the first time in more than a year, my daughter asked, "Can I write back?" My gut twisted. Every fiber of me warned that this could be another trap. This felt too clean, too timely, too carefully worded. A chest piece repositioned. But it was different. My daughter had taken ownership of it. This wasn't about me. It was about her. I said, "Write what's in your heart." That evening, they sat together at the kitchen table. My daughter wrote, "Thank you for your letter. I miss you sometimes. I feel safe here with Dad. I hope you can find happiness, too. Love, Emma." When she gave it to me, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to shred it for old times for control. But that would have been me repeating the patterns I'd worked so hard to break. So I sealed it and mailed it that night. Just a plain school envelope. No return address. Later, I sat in the living room thinking about forgiveness. It's not a gift. It's a choice. A conscious decision to not let their actions define us any further. I realized this was the second unexpected twist. The first was the letter. The second was recognizing I had finally earned the right to choose how to respond. Not out of anger, not out of control, but out of clarity and protection. This doesn't change what happened, but maybe it changes what happens next. I know my mother might never change. My brother and sister likely won't either, but for my daughter, a healing line has been drawn, and I didn't have to fight it. She chose it herself. I don't know what will happen now. The door isn't open, but a message got through. Maybe that's enough. So this is where it really ends. Or maybe where something new begins.